Let me read something to you. You said, when I graduated from Bowdoin, I was a different person than when I entered. I knew my vocation would be to work in the poorest communities this country had to offer. It was my calling when I came. It was my calling when I left. But being at Bowdoin was like being plunged into a brave new world. The people had changed me. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, this is one of the great things I think about education. So I grew up poor. Mm. I had never been around even middle class African Americans. Mm. So I went to Bowdoin. I found middle and upper middle class whites, and I found middle and upper middle class African Americans, and I had never seen anything like it before. Mm-hmm. And very quickly, so here's one of the first things. In the South Bronx when we were growing up, we had a certain culture of toughness, right? That was just the way so if we met somebody for the first time, you know, be like, yo, how you doing? Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was just like everybody had to be cool. You had to be, and so I was meeting these kids, hi, how are you? And I was like, whoa. And I was saying, yo, what's up? How you doing? Mm-hmm. And no one talked to me for the first 6 months, and I was wondering. So later I asked my friends, I said, look, when I first got there, you guys treated me so bad. They said, you were the most hostile person we had ever met, right? You always acted like you were. But it was just the way we were sort of brought up. And so suddenly I had to confront all of these issues. I had never been around white people before. I had just never been around white people before. And so suddenly I'm surrounded, and I'm finding out, hey, they're just people. They're just good, bad, they're just people. Didn't know that the thing that really got to me, I met some of the most brilliant African Americans I had ever seen in my entire life. And I looked at them and I said, I want to be, I mean, I could barely understand what they were saying, right? These were like seniors, and they were talking about dialectism and all, and I'm just sitting there, I never heard these words, what are they? And I just said, I want to be like that. And as a role model, it inspired me to take academics serious and to want to become a scholar. And they sat us down as freshmen and said, you know, all of that's good, whatever happened, but here you've got to be a scholar, and you're going to have to take this seriously. And I know if I had gone to another school that had, I think, less rigor to it, I would have been happy to party my 4 years away and pass my classes with C's and thought that that was great. Here there was a bar that everybody said, you have to get to that bar, and everybody around me was trying to do that. And there was no escaping that. And after a while, I just accepted that that was the cultural values of that school, and I became that myself. And then after a while, this was about how many A's you received in your classwork, and not about whether or not you made the varsity basketball team or you were playing football or some of those other things. And that, when I left Bowdoin and came back out, I still understood the streets, and I still understood, but I was also a changed person. I was just as comfortable being in the company of educated men and women who had a different set of cultural values than I did growing up.
So you didn't think, as someone might have thought, that the change in you was a loss, that you were losing something, that you had left something behind of yourself. You just added something.
It was that, and you know, the wonderful thing about it was that I've always worked in inner cities and with poor children. And I started out working actually in Boston, and I was working with all white children. They weren't African American, but they were poor, and they felt neglected. They felt everybody were singling them out because they were poor. They didn't feel like they belonged. And I was like, well, I know people feel like that. That just feels like, you know, y'all just white. Y'all don't understand. There's a whole bunch of people feel just like that. And the ability to bring the experiences growing up poor to that group and to be able to connect with them because I understood what that felt like was something I've used my whole life. So I actually thought this was an addition and not a subtraction, that the change allowed me to move from talking with a group of kids in the project, be they black or white, and feeling comfortable walking through that neighborhood, as well as it did going into a boardroom and talking to people about budgets and finance and those kinds of things. And I think that change happened while I was at Bowdoin.